And so yeah, the last animal for today, I decided to go for a pretty common animal. You know, the first two ones were a bit more exotic, you could say. One being only in Australia, the other being a marine animal, more from like Japan and stuff like that. But now we are gonna talk about the Old World Swallowtail, aka Papilio machaon, which I would wager you likely have, seen in your life, or live in a place where you at least could see one. So they are pretty common. They're a bit rare, I guess, in terms of butterflies. You will not see them that much, but they are, as you can see, like on the map, they have a very wide distribution range. So it goes from the entirety of Europe and Eurasia to Japan, even a bit like North Africa, and funnily enough, also North America, which is weird because, of course, its common name is the Old World Swallowtail, meaning, the European swallowtail. Usually, Old World refers to Europe, Asia, and stuff like that, and the New World is, North America and stuff. But you can still find them in North America. Again, whoever gave the common name to this guy fucked up bad, but too late. We have to use it now. And so, yeah, the Old World Swallowtail is the type species of the genus Papilio, and is somewhat rarer sight in much of the Palearctic and North America. And it's a butterfly, in case you did not know that. I'm sure it was obvious, but yeah, it's a butterfly. And here, the type species of the genus Papilio, that means that in the group Papilio, it's like the first species that was described, and the one that is a bit linked to it. So sometimes species can move from a genus to another, depending on DNA analysis and stuff. But in this case, you could not remove Papilio machaon from the Papilio genus, because it is the species that goes with it. So yeah, you have to keep it in there, pretty much is what it means. And yeah, so its habitat is mostly alpine meadows, hillsides, even gardens, but a lot of others depending on the subspecies. But mostly it lives at higher altitudes, which is also maybe why you would not have seen many. They can go to lower altitudes, but they do prefer living, up mountains and stuff like that. So if you go trekking a bit, maybe, you'll be more likely to see some. And again, yeah, they're not restricted to the Old World, despite the common name. Someone fucked up. And they can be found up to 4,900 meters, which is a lot, okay? 16,000 feet in the Himalayas. So yeah, they can be very high up. Extremely high up even. Which is quite impressive for butterflies, I guess. But yeah, you can find them pretty much anywhere. Again, some general information about this little butterfly. We are still in the domain Eukaryota and the kingdom Animalia, as usual. But this time we're changing and we are in the phylum Arthropoda. So that's the phylum where you will find stuff like insects, crabs, lobsters, millipedes, centipedes, spiders, scorpions, that kind of stuff, right? And so more precisely here, we are in the class Insecta, which, as you can imagine, is where you find insects. And then we are in the order Lepidoptera, which is where you find all butterflies and moths, the family Papilionidae, and the genus Papilio, with this species being the machaon. And it was discovered by Linnaeus in 1758, a long time ago. Or at least, again, described. Not discovered, I guess, but described. And yeah, Linnaeus is a very important guy, and you'll likely see his name in parentheses a lot of the time, for European animals at least. He described most of them. He was quite a Chad, okay? And so the common name is Old World Swallowtail is a big one. But it has more than that. Again, you can have more than one common name, even for one language in particular. So you also have common yellow swallowtail, or you can just name it the swallowtail. So its conservational status is of least concern, so no problems there. It is rarer than other butterflies, but again, it's mostly because of the type of habitats it likes to inhabit. But overall, it is of least concern because it has such a big range of distribution. The average lifespan is 3 months, though it can be a lot more if it is hibernating. They weigh 0.5 gram, which is of course not a lot, 0.02 ounces, and the wingspan is 5.5 to 8.8 centimeters, 2.2 to 3.4 inches. So quite big for butterflies, actually. If I remember correctly, I think it's like the biggest butterfly in the UK. Now, of course, there are some way bigger butterflies elsewhere in the world, but in Europe and in the UK, it's like one of the biggest butterflies you can see. So pretty cool. So it's a flying animal, of course, as you can imagine. It's a butterfly. It's a pollinator, like most butterflies do. And I put metamorphosis too in there, because as you also likely know, butterflies start off as caterpillars and metamorphose into butterflies. So yeah, it's the type species of the genus Papilio. And how can you recognize it? Well, it's a bit more complex than what I've put here, because there's a loads of subspecies with different colors and stuff. But at least, like, usually you can recognize it because it has like yellow wings with black vein markings. It has 6 blue spots on each hind wings, so 12 in total, and 1 red spot on each, so 2 red spots in total, and some protruding tails. And it's actually those tails that give it its name, common name, like the swallowtail, because supposedly those tails look like the tails of a bird of the same name, you know, swallows and stuff. They supposedly have something that looks a bit alike, so that's why they are named swallowtails. And the species name, so the Latin name, is named after Machaon, son of Asclepius, a figure in Greek mythology. Why? I don't know. Because, you know, Linnaeus was a funny guy, I guess. He was like, yeah, just give him that name. Why not? It sounds cool, I guess. Okay, so here we have some, you know, a bit like the life cycle of the butterfly. At first, I guess I have a picture of the underside. Then eggs are laid singly and are spherical, little face like that. And it darkens in color as the larva inside it develops. Then you get a caterpillar that looks a bit like that, but that is like the final form of the caterpillar. And it can even protect itself using a large orange fork, also called an osmeterium, which protrudes behind its head. We don't really see it here, but it's like, yeah, a bit like an antenna if you want, an orange antenna. And it's like, yeah, to protect it from potential predators. And when young, the caterpillar resembles a bird dropping, giving it camouflage. Less in its final form, but the first forms of the caterpillar, yeah, looks a lot like shit, pretty much, which is a valid way of camouflaging yourself. If you look like shit, who is gonna try and eat you? You know, it makes sense. And then you also have the chrysalis. So, subspecies galore. Oh, yes indeed. So there are quite a lot of subspecies of Papilio machaon. Actually, 37 recognized subspecies according to the IUCN Red Data Book, which is like the book you use to see, yeah, how many subspecies there are. Like, it's the prime reference. And so, yeah, they recognized 37 subspecies, which is a lot. For example, like other animals with maybe somewhat known subspecies are like giraffes, for example, but they only have like 3 subspecies. So, you know, it's not that much. But here we have a butterfly with already 37 subspecies. But it's a lot more complex than that, because the actual number is unknown. And the number can range from a handful of subspecies, like I think 4 is like the minimum, to more than 100 depending on the author. So yeah, that's also a problem, because I guess you could ask, you know, what is a subspecies exactly? And the answer is, who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, of course, some, you know, scientists have put forward definitions of what a subspecies is, but there's no actual consensus. So you can a bit say whatever you want, pretty much. Usually, you know, it's like they have to be different enough morphologically or in the way they do stuff. Also, they should, you know, live in different places. It's usually also how you get new subspecies, geographic separation and stuff. Also, DNA differences is a big one. But even then, it's complicated, very much so. Because again, you can get up to 100 different subspecies if you look at like different coloration and stuff, even though technically those are not really different, like DNA-wise and stuff, so it can get complex. And actually, yeah, a recent study proposes that only a handful of described subspecies are genetically different enough to be considered as such. So yeah, it's like a 2022 study, so that like most are not actual subspecies. I think there's like only 4. There's like one in Morocco that's different. There's one in China, in the Himalayas, like very high up. There's one in Japan. The one in Japan is different. But like all the others, like 30 subspecies or whatever, are potentially not really subspecies. Though again, you can say whatever you want. No one can really say otherwise because no one knows for sure. Yeah, so you have to believe me. I guess it's how it is. And yeah, it's also like a big research topic, Papilio machaon, and its subspecies in the field of speciation. Like a lot of studies have been made on them because you can actually see new species emerge in real time almost, you know, like the one from Japan, for example. If we wait enough, it will likely differentiate into its own species. Now, of course, I say in real time, but it can take a long ass time for new species to arise. It could be thousands, if not millions of years. So you will likely be dead before that, but still, that's still, you know, yeah, a lot of research is made on that. And yeah, another reason there are so many subspecies, even though it's not really warranted, is because in the ancient times, you know, of the 18th century and stuff, like butterfly collection was already like a big thing. People who liked to collect all of the different forms and stuff. And the like big organization that handled the collection of specimens and stuff to sell to enthusiasts, of course, you know, likely made up a lot of subspecies so they could sell a lot more stuff for a better price. And later, you know, scientists making research and stuff took those made up subspecies into account. And so it became like actual subspecies in the red data book, for example. In the end, capitalism wins again, I guess, whatever. And so that's why also it's hard to actually identify sometimes the butterfly, because as you can see, the Hypocrates subspecies in Japan can look widely different, like a lot more black, but it's still the same species. So you need to be careful when you identify insects and butterflies even more than other animals. This can happen a lot. Then I put here some of the host plants where you can find those butterflies, or I guess the caterpillars, which it depends on like where the butterfly lives. So in the UK, for example, it only feeds on milk parsley. In Europe, it feeds on a wide variety of umbelliferae. So that's stuff like the wild carrot, fennel. In the Maltese Islands, it feeds, for example, on rue. So it can depend, you know, it tends to be on specific plants, but if those plants cannot be found in certain places, well, it will do with what it has. Then we have the behavior of hilltopping. So what that is that the males of the species will congregate on hilltops where they fight for the most elevated territory. But they do that because the males that control the top of the hill, you know, the hilltop, so this territory will attract and therefore be able to mate with more females. So it's just a way for them to, again, try to mate with the strongest boy around. It happens a lot with animals. A male will also try to intimidate anything that can fly off his territory, even predators like dragonflies and birds, which usually ends badly. They will try to fight a bird and get eaten. They're a bit dumb like that. You know, the butterflies. What do you expect of them now? Come on. This behavior is also commonly seen in many other insects, including other butterflies, dragonflies, bumblebees, wasps, beetles, and flies. So yeah, loads of insects do it. And many authors consider this a form of lecking behavior. And a lek is an aggregation of male animals with the goal of attracting females. So you see that a lot in even more animals, so even mammals and stuff. It's a pretty reoccurring strategy for survival. And in this picture, of course, you can see a very fierce and bloody battle between competing males. Don't look too much though, it is very gory and stuff. Okay, and some more in-depth fact. The Osmiterium gives off a pungent smell similar to rotting pineapple. So that's like the fork on top of the caterpillar, on top of its head. So yeah, that's like rotting pineapple. At lower elevations, these butterflies fly from March to September. At higher elevations, they are limited by the short summer seasons. So yeah, that will depend on where they are. The butterflies of the north usually have one brood, aka that's also called being univoltine, in May through July, while those of the south have 2 bivoltine or 3 broods, trivoltine. And in some places, such as the UK, some will pupate and emerge in the same year, and others will overwinter as pupae before emerging the following year, a situation known as being partially bivolatile. So yeah, depending on, again, the place where they live, you will have more than one generation of butterfly per year, with usually one of the generation of butterfly will be hibernating. Or in the case of the UK, they even hibernate as pupae, so chrysalis. Then adults, particularly males, emit a fairly strong scent perceivable by humans. Okay, that one is a very weird fact, but I saw a research, study made by, scientists that was all about, can you smell butterflies? The answer is yes, you can. So yeah, I can say with certitude that you can smell butterfly. If you smell hard enough, I guess. I don't know if it's really that strong for us, but yeah, still. And it likely, helps females find males and stuff like that. They do be musky boys, I guess. Though I could not tell you what kind of scent that is exactly. Is it musky? Maybe. Maybe it's very sweet. Who knows? And a mutation or variation on swallowtail's natural color is the occasional butterfly that displays melanism, a black coloration on the wings rather than yellow. So yeah, and you have a lot more variation and mutations. Again, that gives you the numerous subspecies that have been recorded. Then, okay, that is maybe almost too in-depth information, but it can be distinguished from Papilio hospiton, so another species of the genus Papilio, which occurs sympatrically with it. So that means they live in the same region, so they can see each other. So sympatrically with it on Corsica and Sardinia by the longer tails on the hind wings. So that's more to say that, sometimes, you have to be careful because different species can look very much alike. So in this case, it's only the tails that are slightly longer. That's the only difference. And also with the Algerian species Papilio saharae, you can only differentiate them by counting the segments on the antennae, even more specific. So it's impossible to tell them apart without actually counting, which is, makes stuff a bit hard, but, it's fine, it's fine. At least you have a physical character here. I know in some species, sometimes they look so much alike you can only tell by DNA analysis and stuff. And that's fucked up. In some countries, the swallowtail and its subspecies are protected by law, so I guess watch out. If you live in a place where that is the case, don't kill one, I guess. Bad idea. It's also the national butterfly of Estonia, where it was named Butterfly of the Year in 2018. And the common name swallowtail applies to all members of the family, but Papilio machaon was the first to be given the name. So yeah, again, be careful if you call something a swallowtail. It can be a wide number of different species, and that's why it's better to call it Papilio machaon if you want to be sure. It can easily be bred in captivity, and that is just a cool fact, but presumably an isolation mechanism exists in China where populations above 4,000 meters, so 13,100 feet above sea level, are isolated from lowland populations by a layer of monsoon clouds. So yeah, you could actually get a new species, I guess, of butterfly, because some butterflies have been isolated by clouds, which is a pretty rare isolation mechanism to create new species. Usually it's more like mountain ranges, seas, stuff like that. In that case, it's just clouds enough, But I guess for a butterfly, clouds are pretty daunting, I guess, to go through. So understandable. I also have some pictures here, again, of the different stages of the caterpillar. And those stages are called instar, in case you did not know. With the adult being called an imago also. So an imago, will make an egg, then you have a first instar, second instar, third instar, fourth instar, fifth instar, which is the big boy I showed just before, which becomes a pupa or chrysalis, and then becomes an adult or imago. So that's a bit how the life cycle of butterflies goes usually too, It's not only Papilio machaon, though the number of instars will change depending on the species. And last fun fact, I guess, is that the swallowtail has been through a bunch of different common names, in the UK at least, but I'm guessing maybe in different places too. So for example, in 1699, its common name was the Royal William, and not at all the same, right? In 1742, it was the swallowtail, so it went to swallowtail once, Then it went back to being called the Queen in 1832, then the swallowtail butterfly again in 1860, and then the common swallowtail, as it is now, in 1959. But so, again, you have to be careful, I guess, if you're reading older books and stuff. You know, if it talks about a Royal William, it's like, it could be this guy. It's not a different species. And so, yeah, that can happen. That's why, again, common names are not very good when talking and trying to be precise about what you're talking about, you know, when talking about animals and stuff. So that's why using the Latin name is better.